Welcome back to TK Tennis and the quarterfinals predictions for the men's quarterfinals at the US Open. And I just got back from a trip, so I'm going to hopefully be doing some more videos now that I'm back and able to hopefully get the cadence out a little bit more frequently. So let's jump into my predictions for the quarterfinals. What a US Open it's been. There's been a lot of drama. I want to do a video on some of that drama as well. But today's all about predictions since the matches are just getting started here shortly. So first off, we have Felix Auger-Aliassime, and I'm just going to call him FAA since my pronunciation has something to be desired, to say the least, against de Minaur. This is probably the most intriguing matchup in terms of predictability or challenge in predictability between these two guys, because Felix, or FAA, is playing really well as he has probably in about 2 years now, against de Minaur, who is playing, of course, really well as well. And de Minaur being the fastest player on the tour. You could say that, I think, along with Alcaraz. So Alcaraz and de Minaur being the fastest guys. And if you know anything about much of my predictions, even though conditions and court surfaces and all types of things play a role into my predictions, all the predictions are based on, let's assume that the players are playing well and then they're not having any physical issues and there's no injuries. So outside of that, if something happens, they're not playing well due to a physical issue or an illness, then of course the predictions go out the window. But when it comes to predicting men's tennis, you hear me talk about this a lot, and it's about who's the better mover. And with all other things being relatively equal or less important, I usually start off with who's the better mover. Because if the other things are equal, the better mover always wins. And you're going to hear this theme throughout these predictions. So when it comes to Felix, also a great mover, but it comes down to this match is who's going to be able to be a little bit more offensive. Meaning, is Felix, FAA, more particularly Felix, is he going to be able to be offensive enough to really cause de Minaur problems and being able to take the offensive play to de Minaur? Because if he doesn't, then de Minaur is going to be able to take his offensive style, which you may not think of as very offensive since he's a classic ultimate counterpuncher. But if you give him too much time and space, he will make you pay because he's a very committed volleyer and can come to net and put away volleys very aggressively. So I think this really boils down to Felix, whether he's able to play consistently enough and if he's able to play offensively enough to beat de Minaur. And the answer to that question, I think, is going to be a relatively clear no. I don't think he's going to be able to do so as well as FAA has been playing. De Minaur has been playing just as well in terms of his top level. So when these two guys are playing their top level, like you could make an argument that FAA may have the advantage at that time on hard courts. But overall, I think it moves towards de Minaur having the advantage. And I'm going to give him the likelihood of winning, and I'm going to predict him to be the winner. But when I do these predictions, I'm going to talk about whether I pencil it in, pen it in, or put it in Sharpie. And this is the ultimate: write it in pencil and be prepared to erase it, because it could go either way. So I'm picking de Minaur, penciling it in, not as a clear favorite, as a slight favorite in my mind, based on court conditions and just based on de Minaur's incredible counterpunching ability and speed. But it should be a pretty good match. All right, moving on to Alcaraz versus, whether you say Lehecka or Lehecka, I think it's Lehecka. So I'm going to go with that. So Lehecka versus Alcaraz. All right, this one's pretty easy. I'm not sure what the head-to-head here is. I know it's obviously favors Alcaraz by a lot. I don't see Lehecka having any chance to win this match. Not the way Alcaraz has been playing. Alcaraz has been playing fantastic. And basically, I think Lehecka is one heck of a player. I like watching him a lot. I think he has a great game, but he doesn't seem to have the killer instinct that a true champion like Alcaraz has. So Lehecka has a great game, great forehand, really nice serve. If he can play extraordinarily well, he could give Alcaraz challenges. But with the predictability of the court surface being a hard court and the speed. Again, this comes down to footwork and speed. In the men's game, the person with the better footwork and who's faster, with all other things being equal, and they're not here. So Alcaraz has the advantage in speed, agility, overall footwork. He has the advantage in terms of his ground strokes, his creativity. The only area that maybe he doesn't have a huge advantage of, or not a huge advantage, but some advantage, is on the serve. Lehecka is a very good server as well at times. So, but Alcaraz still gets the advantage even on the serve. So this match is not in Lehecka's control. It's all about what Alcaraz does. And the way Alcaraz is playing, this is an easy Sharpie. Mark it in Sharpie. Alcaraz for the win. No problem. No surprise there. I don't know anyone that would pick Lehecka to beat Alcaraz at the US Open in the quarterfinals. All right, moving on to the all-Italian match between Sinner and Musetti. This happens tomorrow, which is on a Wednesday. Will be Sinner versus Musetti. And also, much like the Alcaraz match, this is easy prediction, right? Musetti is a wonderful player, but in terms of the true competitive championship mentality, Musetti has not shown it. And when it comes to this surface, with the exceptional footwork, again, coming back to the footwork and their speed and agility, as creative as Musetti can be, Sinner's just an animal on hard courts, right? He's not going to be beat by creativity by Musetti, who is unable to usually stand on the baseline with most of the top players and go toe-to-toe. He has to have a little bit more time and space due to his strokes with his high elbow and his slice and his one-handed backhand. And while he could give Sinner trouble with his slice backhand at times or keep Sinner at bay, Sinner doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he can still punish you on both sides, forehand and backhand, and he's going to punish Musetti no matter what Musetti tries to do. Musetti's only hope is if he's serving wildly good, able to hold serve, get it into some tiebreakers, but there's just no way, no scenario that you can really envision, again, if Sinner is playing to his full potential because he's healthy and not dealing with any physical issues, which he doesn't seem to be. And the way he just dismantled Bublik, even though this is a total different style of play, there's no way that Musetti is going to be able to hit drop shots off of Sinner's ground strokes that are just coming at him too hard. It's very hard to execute drop shots when someone's hitting 85-mile-an-hour ground strokes at you from the baseline. You just don't have the time. Plus, even if you do execute a drop shot on hard court, Sinner's going to get to it. He's standing on the baseline. He's going to get to it. It would have to be an insanely good drop shot for Sinner not to be able to get to it. And in order to hit an insanely good drop shot means you have to go for tighter margins, which means you're going to make more mistakes. So it's just not in the cards for Musetti. And this is an easy Sharpie match. Mark it in Sharpie. Sinner for the win against Musetti. Okay, moving on to the most interesting match probably in this is Novak versus Fritzy. So Novak versus Fritz. Novak's head-to-head record against Fritz is 10-0. So it should be an easy prediction, right? Right, it really is. Barring some unforeseen circumstances, Fritz has only taken 3 sets off of Novak in those 10 meetings. So Novak has obviously the clear advantage and doesn't fear Fritz's ability to beat him whatsoever, which means Novak is going to be comfortable coming into this match. And you might say, well, maybe he's too comfortable and maybe this is Fritz's chance to actually upset Novak. You could make that argument at times, but not when it comes to the style of play and the matchup you have here. When it comes to this matchup, this is a really bad matchup for Fritz. And it's going to be really hard for him because you're dealing with the best counterpuncher tennis has ever seen in Novak, with still an ability to be very offensive as well. So not only is Novak the greatest counterpuncher the game has ever seen, not only does he have, 25 Grand Slams? 24 or 25? 24 or 25 Grand Slams. Hard to even keep count these days of how many Grand Slams he has. But there's really no advantage that Fritz has other than his serve. And Fritz is playing incredibly well, has been one of the most consistent players in Grand Slams over the past couple of years outside of Sinner and Alcaraz. So you might think he's gotten better. He has a chance since Novak, of course, is getting older and hasn't been playing as many matches. But all the advantages outside of the serve just point to Novak. And again, it comes down to what? Movement, agility, and movement. And this is where this game or this match is going to be defined, as it has been in the past. As long as Novak is physically healthy and is able to have his normal movement at his current age, it's still far superior getting in and out of the corners compared to Fritz. And that's a huge advantage. So Fritz is able to hit crushing forehands and put Novak on the defensive. But Novak's one of the best counterpunchers, or the best counterpuncher that's ever lived in tennis. So he's still able to get those shots back. And not only can he get those shots back, which I often mention, is Novak plays with a very heavy racket. And his style of play, or his stroke mechanics, has a disconnect between how hard he seems to be hitting it versus how hard he actually does hit it. Where Fritz uses relatively medium or lighter racket and uses a lot of racket head speed and a lot of spin on his forehand in particular to generate the power. Novak is totally different. He's using the mass of the racket and a little bit more of an addressing the ball, driving through the ball, still hitting with a lot of topspin, but hits a, I would say, flatter shot, to some extent flatter, but a more penetrating shot. But it doesn't look more penetrating when he hits it because he's not swinging as fast as people like Sinner, Fritz, Alcaraz. So there's a disconnect. When you watch him hit the ball, notice how when Novak hits a winner, you don't even think it's going to be a winner, but the ball gets past him. So even when Novak is in counterpunching behind the baseline, he's able to get a lot of pace and a lot of penetration on his ball. And that will give Fritz problems like it always has. And Fritz's backhand, it's not a weakness. It can be a weapon at times, but it's also just a shot that usually sets the point up or resets the point when he needs to. He can certainly hit winners off it. He can certainly be aggressive at him. But most of the time, he's buying his time on his backhand, on his ground strokes, to hit a forehand. And Novak is able to, on the forehand and the backhand, to take advantage of that and to move Fritz around the court. So Fritz just resets the point or hits a backhand down the middle of the court or slightly towards the corners. Novak is going to be able to punish him like he has in the past and towards the backhand. And as good of a mover as Fritz is for his size, a lot of people think that Fritz is not a good athlete because he looks a little awkward on the court. But he's surprisingly a really good athlete. And the way for his size that he's able to contort his body to hit certain shots, he's incredibly agile for his size. But he's still not Novak. He's still not Alcaraz. He never will be. He's still not Sinner. And at the end of the day, this comes down to movement. It's a 10-0 lifetime record against these two guys. And as well as Fritz is playing, I just don't see how he can beat Novak. Novak's one of the best spot servers the game has ever seen. So it's going to and of course he's the best returner, one of the best returners the game has ever seen as well, meaning Novak. So if Fritz has a bad game in any of the sets where he misses a bunch of first serves, he's going to get broken at times. And he would have to serve incredibly well throughout the match and in tiebreakers to win sets off of Novak. And since he's only won 3 sets in 10 meetings, is there any proof whatsoever that he can win 3 sets in a single match against Novak? That's hard to see. That would be miraculous if that were to happen. And I just don't see it happening here. As much as Novak hasn't been playing big tournaments, he's still playing really well. He has all the advantages over Fritz mentally, experience-wise, and everything. So it's just really hard to see Fritz winning this match without serving out of his mind, hitting serves +1. And more importantly, I think the only way Fritz wins this match is if Novak is having physical difficulties. Doesn't seem to be a heat issue in New York at this time, so I don't see it being heat related. But of course, Novak is 38 years old, and anything can come up at any time. And that's really the only hope that Fritz has in this match. So clearly, Novak with Sharpie, mark it to Novak with Sharpie. Overall, I think the only match that's up in the air is FAA versus Minaur. And that's my thoughts, and those are my predictions. Let me know what you think in the comments. And hopefully coming up, I should have more bandwidth where I can do the semifinals predictions and the finals predictions, which we certainly seem headed towards. Well, I'm not going to say it because we all know it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next days.